Every year, in the deepest, darkest days of winter on the campus of Montana State University, the Sidewalk ice monster lies in wait for its prey. The conditions for the morning hunt are perfect. Below freezing temperatures, precipitation from the night before, low visibility, hilly terrain, half awake, half aware, and half sober college students walking briskly, trying to make it to a warm classroom on time. The ruthless brute waits for one small miscalculation of step, or one momentary loss of concentration, then swipe, smack, it's over. It's not so much the slipperiness. It's not the frigidness either, or the rigidity. The worst part about the ice monster is the suddenness. It will grab you and have you sideways in the air and pretzeled on the ground before you can even start to scream about the injustice that has befallen you. If you've never wintered in the northern latitudes, the only other thing I can offer in comparison to this malignity is a blindside car accident in which, for an impossibly discombobulated moment, the world spins so quickly out of control that there's no comprehension. Only when the spinning stops can you begin to assess the damage. What really makes the college student perfect prey for this cold-blooded assassin is the backpack. The student has packed into it several thick textbooks, maybe a computer, maybe some food and drink, maybe a change of clothes for the gym. Who knows what else might be in there? For who knows what the day might bring or what yesterday brought? What's certain is that it's heavy. The student bemoans this particular span of his life where he has to carry around such a burden every day for months on end. But the serpent of slip that lies beneath the student's feet, he smiles, for he knows that it is the backpack that brings him the most abundant spoils. See, when you slip on ice unencumbered, you can throw out your arms and sometimes flail around long enough to find balance. But with 20 or 30 pounds on your back, you can't overcome the sudden weighted shift of your center of gravity. Angular momentum swings so swiftly out of your favor that your only hope is that the load on your back hits the ground first and bears some of the brunt of the fall that it caused in the first place. You might also get lucky and land in a snowbank instead of on the frozen sidewalk. Either way, your misfortune will be accompanied by laughter and other expressions of amusement. For whose compassion can eclipse the hilarity of such a spectacle? The worst fall I remember happened in a Monday morning fog. I played on the school's hockey team. Apparently, I didn't get enough ice time walking to classes. I scored more injuries than goals, though, and on this particular frosty day, I was limping from a sprained knee suffered in a weekend slugfest with our cross-state rivals. This further imbalance was like blood in the water for the ice monster, and he got me good. It was not the funny kind of fall, though, as my bad knee was twisted into further trauma as the rest of my body and books came down upon it. It took me a few minutes to get up from that one. It took a few months for my knee to heal. In fact, once in a while when the weather changes, my knee still reminds me of those vile Montana sidewalks. If only there was an Uber for backpacks or something for struggling college students on wintry campuses. A companion of sorts that would carry some of our textbooks so that we weren't so easily swept off our feet by minor missteps. In times before Ubers and before backpacks, and even before universities, people had the burden of plowing fields. In order to maximize food production and increase their chances of survival, they had to continually turn over the soil. This aerates it, brings fresh nutrients to the surface, wipes out weeds, and mixes in organic matter for fertilization. Having moved to Texas a few years ago and actually obtaining a large enough yard to plant a garden, I can report that plowing even a small plot of land with a shovel or a hoe is an arduous task. People had to figure out a way to dig up areas of dirt much larger than an average Texan backyard. They didn't have apps. There was no on-demand service that they could tap. But the one thing they did have was oxen. They devised a piece of wood that would fit between two of these strong beasts and formed it around their shoulders. To this piece of wood, they tied a rope. And at the trailing end of the rope, they attached blades that would uproot the soil as they were dragged through the fields by the oxen. Ingenious. The harness that linked the oxen together in their work was known as a yoke. When inventions turn out to be highly significant, they also turn into verbs, and thus to be yoked with someone came to mean being joined, or linked, or united in a task. When choosing two oxen to share a yoke, it made sense to choose one that was older and more experienced, to put with one that was younger and didn't quite know what to do. This way, the more seasoned ox, the one that knew the routine and the terrain, could lead the younger and bear the majority of the load. It was among a people very familiar with this method of cultivating fields that an enigmatic man named Jesus planted this enduring offer. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It is among a people very unfamiliar with farming and very much averse to labor of any kind that this offer may sound a bit unappealing. Why be yoked to anyone at all? Who wants to plow fields anyway? That sounds like some sort of slavery or punishment. We're not oxen, are we? You can keep your yoke to yourself. I, too, have been mesmerized by modernity. But even for those of us that are so far from the agrarian life that we have to ask our computers what it was even like, we still find that life is a labor. We may not be toiling in fields, but we still toil at our desks. We toil in factories, trades, hospitals, schools, restaurants, markets, garages, studios, gyms, offices, courts, clinics, cars, delivery trucks. We toil in the heat. We toil in the cold. We toil on long roads and over deep waters. We even toil in the sky. Wherever there are humans trying to find a way to survive. But lest the weary find rest beyond mere survival, what further strains us is the work of raising children, taking care of our elders, and helping our neighbors. The work of maintaining residences and maintaining relationships. The ceaseless drudgery of doing the dishes, the laundry, mowing the lawn, cleaning bathrooms, breaking up fights, being jury and judge of matters involving stolen toys and bite marks. Your physics professor taught you about the laws of motion and springs, but didn't teach you about the principle of offspring in motion, which says that it is not possible for more than one room in your house to be clean at any one time. Just when you've got the leaky faucet fixed, the vacuum breaks. A crack starts crawling through the kitchen window. But that will have to wait because the wind has just slammed the front door and broken the deadbolt. While assessing the damage there, you see the HOA outside, taking pictures for their scrapbook, which will tell the story of your weeds being too tall and your time not being tall enough. The refrigerator is on its last legs. The air conditioner is out of breath, and the soup is boiling over, and I don't know if I'm talking about my house anymore, or myself. All I know is that my soul could use some rest, and my burdens could use some easing. I am no ox, but I wouldn't mind being yoked in this field. Like all of Christ's offerings, this gentle, generous offer of his yoke has no expiration date. It persists through all times and pertains to all cultures and peoples. He knew that in a broken world, we would face conflict and opposition in all things. He knew that even the best handymen would still be in constant need of repairs, and even the best mothers would be in constant need of nurturing. He knew that no walk through this wilderness would be easy, so he said, I'm going to be with you. Learn of me. You don't have to do this alone. If I have the power to lift mountains out of the ocean, I have the power to lift some of your burdens. I have the wisdom to help you figure this out. I can be the elder ox. I can show you the way. I can give you peace, even as you toil. Being yoked doesn't sound so bad anymore in this context, the context of the human experience. If it's going to be a labor, why not make it a labor of love and light? If we're going to learn, why not learn from the best? from the Creator, Savior, and Redeemer of the world. If there's going to be turmoil, why not find some meaning in the madness? Why not find some order in the chaos? Why not align our will with the one who willed us to life eternal? Now, with all this talk of fields and yokes, you may have forgotten about sidewalks and ice. Well, our college student hasn't forgotten. He's a weathered adult now. And he's found that carrying heavy burdens around in perilous territory was not the temporary task that he'd imagined it to be. He's still got the backpack, and it still makes him vulnerable to being sideswiped at any moment. He's tired and weary, and he still yearns for the companion that will walk with him and lighten his burdens. The endless summer always ends. The fall comes to us all. As the temperature drops, we prepare to earn the degrees that we registered for when it was still warm. The wind begins blowing from an unfamiliar direction. The trees turn briefly more beautiful in protest before succumbing and becoming skeletons. The storms are brewing. The ice monster is stirring. The bookstore is open and the backpacks are bloating. We embark on the long and heavy walk through winter. The promise is not that we get to skip the season. The promise to the weary and burdened is rest for our souls. There will still be blizzards, but the promisor can help us see through them. There will still be ice, but having our load lightened and our center of gravity in Him, we can stay upright. Even when we have rejected the yoke and chosen to go it on our own, His hand is extended with the offer to save us from the snowbank and mend our mangled knees. There will still be tests, but He can help us pass with flying colors. For as hard as winter may try to extend its dominion, spring is no less inevitable. Spring is resurrection. The breeze turns benevolent and the trees come alive. The slippery serpent has no choice but to evaporate. The snow melts helplessly away and new growth is revealed in the lights of an abounding sun. Our daily treks through the elements have paid off. All the words that were once only on pages or in the minds of sages are now part of us. We are now stabilized on sure footing and cannot be swept off our feet by any manner of beguilement. We are ready for the ceremony where the tassel that hangs from our mortarboard is transferred to an edge perpendicular to where it is now, signaling graduation from this particular venture. Now we're ready for what's next, ready to step into a world perpendicular to the one we're in now. Now we are ready to blossom.